Welcome to Sterling Insights. Stand out and supercharge your assets. The go-to podcast for financial advisors aiming to grow their assets under management, stand out in a crowded market, and retain assets nearly forever. Are you advising high net worth clients who own appreciated capital assets? Do you want to help them sell without losing a quarter, a third, or even more of their hard-earned profits to capital gains taxes? Then this podcast is tailored for you. Each episode brings you the latest strategies and expert advice from leading financial advisors, seasoned attorneys, and experienced CPAs. Learn how to maximize your clients' wealth, minimize their taxes, and supercharge your advisory practice with actionable insights. Join us on Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets, where you'll gain the knowledge and tools to set yourself apart and achieve unparalleled success in wealth management. Subscribe now and empower your practice for a brighter, more prosperous future.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Sterling Insights podcast. This is co-host Ray O'Connell of Altus Wealth and Tax. We got a great show for you today. I'm being joined today by James Gorzynski, certified expert planning company. James, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I initially started in data analytics and had a degree in accounting and spent a lot of my time in finance, and then it naturally flowed into fractional CFO work for small family-run businesses here in the Southeast. I'm in Charlotte currently, and then worked predominantly with a few specific clients to kind of grow the company and to build value, and essentially fell into the M&A space from there. I essentially reviewed hundreds of businesses and put in some offers, had a couple deals fall through during due diligence, and effectively started my own company shortly thereafter. I've since gone through a successful exit and went back into kind of the M&A side and really enjoyed that part and expanded from there. And now working predominantly on the brokerage and transaction side, but also on the exit planning side, which naturally flows into the brokerage and transactional side. So currently working in both capacities with two separate teams.
Wow, that's awesome. So you mentioned kind of small and medium businesses, Southeast. I know you're honing in on the ideal clients. So can you expand a little more? Who is your ideal client? Who do you like helping? I think I heard that industry doesn't really matter. Is that correct?
That's correct. We've had certainly more experience in certain areas simply because of our different backgrounds. Each person on the team has essentially ran a company or exited a company. Naturally, each of us have a different expertise, which casts a wide array of knowledge. But generally speaking, we're agnostic. My personal background is in trade and home services, construction. We've done quite a few in that kind of HVAC, plumber, landscaping, roofing, etc. space. A lot of dry cleaning and laundromat space as well. But in reality, we can help anyone in any industry. And if we don't think that we're the best fit, we always bring someone else in that might have a specialized niche perspective.
So you got a great team behind you, helping you out, that type of thing. Great background, great background. That's terrific. So when you're working with somebody, how far in advance? And I know it's got to vary, right? I mean, there's no single answer. But ideally, if James said, we're going to try to build value or, get you the most money on an exit, or, conversely, if you're working the other side, get the appropriate entry point, that type of thing. How can you make them think ahead, depending on what side of that transaction they want to be? How can, what issues come up, what problems? How can you help them plan?
Great question. The biggest piece of advice is time is something you can't get back. It's easy to say that, but the reality is the most successful exits have been planned or have been given the proper amount of time and reverse engineered, so to speak, that are aligning the three legs of the stool. And so the life personal leg of the stool, the wealth side of the leg of the stool, the retirement side, so to speak. And then most business owners focus on the third one, the business leg. And that's where we really come in and help align with the financial plan and the personal side. So starting earlier and often is definitely very advantageous. The great part about an exit plan is that if you start early, you can retain a lot of information that's very high value and low cost of time up front. The first 30, 60, 90 days I find to be the pivotal point for any business owners because once it clicks and they see the value and the massive ROI of starting that process, it doesn't mean that it needs to be executed immediately. They can pause and wait a few years. But to answer your question previously, if someone's looking to exit so much soon, then the ideal timeline is usually between that 2 and 5 years. And so
Okay.
if it's less than a year, there's not a whole lot you can do on the brokerage and the transaction side. There's a few things that you can maybe improve and help with that process, but a lot of times it's kind of too late. And that's really why I got my SEPA, the Certified Exit Planning Advisor designation, is that I wanted to get ahead of it. I really wanted to be more strategic about it.
Yeah.
Starting earlier rather than later is always the most advantageous way to approach it.
Great explanation. I like, and I love the three legs of the stool. Why don't you go into the SEPA? What skills does that bring? Does that help? I mean, you've got the skills, but the SEPA organization, what did you have to go through, and what did that open up for you as an individual and as a consultant?
Great question. The program and concept just spoke to me. I read a few different types of books and they all had different concepts. But when I read the SEPA book that is part of the program and the course, I just got it. It just made perfect sense to me. I had implemented a lot of the strategy myself. I just didn't have a language. So the cool part
Uh,
about the whole SEPA program and or EOS is that there's a whole community of folks that understand and speak the same language. And so when you talk to a financial advisor or a CPA or a broker that understands all of that, there's less friction and it's more collaborative. And that's what I really love about it because it produces a win-win situation for everyone. It's good for the client first and foremost. It's really good for the professionals helping them because it reduces time and effort and you can kind of integrate into each other's processes for a much better result.
Awesome. Can you, James, for our audience, maybe give a specific example of a company or a partnership that you were able to help and kind of bring us along the timeline and give us two sides? Give us one that really worked out well and give us one where they didn't interact with you early enough or the problems that came up. Let's look at both sides of that if you could.
Yeah, great question. So a great example of one that worked really, really well was a person that didn't know if they wanted to exit. So essentially, we were going through the process and going through discovery and didn't have clarity. So we essentially go
Um,
through the process and understand, are we able to identify any problems and strategically plan? So they had talked to their financial advisor. They had been given the number to produce. So essentially, we had to look back and see and kind of tie it to the financial advisor perspective and make sure that they were hitting their goal. So for example, they wanted to sell their business for $10 million. And so their business was only worth 6 million. So we had to build a plan to kind of go from the 6 million to the 10 million and effectively build that plan out so that it aligns with their financial plan. And so that was a very successful one that when we went through that process, essentially we got to the 10 million mark and they decided not to sell. So I would view that as a success story because, they can kind of kick the can. They're very well aware of the education and resource perspective and really know what to expect when they do decide to sell. So that was a very successful situation. The company.
let's just stay there for a second. So along this process, sure that you were working with them along the whole way, right? How often did you interact with these individuals? The hand-holding process. What's kind of the timeline there?
Yeah, so every situation is going to be different, but in that situation, we wanted to have a strong cadence. The first 30, 60, 90 days, we accomplish a lot. I kind of call that the accelerated or dating phase, where we're learning a
Okay.
lot. And then we
Yeah.
can move into more of the execution phase. And we really talk about moving through the different phases of the actual execution plan. And so we initially were meeting quite frequently on the front end, and then it moved more of a bi-weekly or monthly cadence thereafter. And I was simultaneously updating the other folks on the advisory board as their progress progressed. And so it kind of ramped up a lot and then it ramped down a little bit. And then when we approached the actual transaction, they effectively said they did not want to sell. If they would have, then we would have ramped up the brokerage and transaction services. We already have intimate knowledge of the company. We're already doing pre-exit research. Then when we're about 12 months out, then we would effectively, take a look at our go-to-market strategy, and then our time investment with them would ramp back up. So it does kind of ebb and flow with regard to that as well.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I get someone at my door here.
So that's a great example and very successful. So what about one that didn't quite work out? I mean, what if our audience could kind of learn, you know, what mistakes do we want to try to avoid or what could we be doing better? That type of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. Conversely, when things don't work out, if people wait for quite a while and they essentially are afraid to get started, that's a lot of the issues. They're not talking with their family, they're not talking to their business partners. An example of something that didn't work out quite well was a business owner coming to us and their company was worth 50% of what it was a couple of years ago. And so when you
Oh, wow.
mentioned that prior, that was very, very frustrating because we knew we couldn't do a whole lot because they had reached their retirement age and there wasn't opportunity or time to effectively rebuild the value of the company and put them in the best possible position.
So time is probably one of the most
Yeah,
critical elements, isn't it? Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. If you don't have time to do your magic, then that's irrevocable. You can't get that back. So you and your staff and your whole lifespan of learning and working at fractional CFO, all of the deals, that type of thing. You've been in this 30, 20 years. What's kind of your tenure in the business, if you would?
Yeah, great question. I have been practicing accounting and data analytics for over 20 years, and I would say from the M&A space, our firm has been between 5 and 7 years been
Wow.
operating from that perspective. So we're a smaller boutique firm of small business owners, and then personally, I've been in it for 4 years, and we've done quite a few transactions here in the Southeast, and then also a lot in Pennsylvania and New York as well, just because a lot of the folks that are in the firm moved from there.
Congratulations, by the way. Yeah. So I suspect in this technology world, you're in the Southeast and you're working with these firms all over on the Eastern Seaboard or wherever, primarily like we're doing today, a Zoom call or things like that. I mean, using technology, right, to basically make those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of handshake people, honestly. And so we'll travel to meet people in person if that's important to them.
Okay.
But in reality, a lot of the work can be done virtually and we're just reviewing documents and using and leveraging technology. So, we really like to put our eyes on a business and meet folks, but a lot of the work can be done, 90% or more can really be done remotely. So if a lot of times it just depends on the personality of the seller. If they want to get started, we just kind of get the ball rolling virtually. If they want to meet, we'll come out and meet them. I've flown all over the country to meet with folks from the Midwest all the way to the East Coast. We don't do much on the West Coast, but definitely not opposed to it as well. We're talking to a potential client in Salt Lake right now as well.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Let's do a little quick segue. So away from work, what does James like to do for fun in your spare time, if you have it?
Yeah, great question. I very much like the outdoors. So I do a lot of running, hiking, and so just recently went to Glacier National Park,
Oh,
Banff, that kind of stuff. As you
yeah.
may have noticed from my polo that I'm wearing here, definitely a big sports guy.
Yeah.
Used to play baseball and golf as well when I was younger, so a lot of those interests lie with that. And then just spending a lot of time with family and friends and enjoy traveling with my wife as well.
Fantastic. Well, James, this has been very, yeah, very interesting and helpful for our audience. Any last nuggets you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, my advice is to start building your advisory team and just start complementing that team. So if your advisory team is just you right now or you and your spouse, start building your team to exit successfully. You can never start sooner from that perspective. Knowledge is power is the way I look at it. And
Yeah,
trying to work with a company that has resources that they can help you and kind of talk through and understand the holistic situation. That would be my biggest piece of advice, along with the fact that exit planning really is business strategy. It doesn't mean that you're exiting now. It just means that you eventually will. 100% business owners will exit at some point. And so don't you want to treat it with the carrot it requires and needs for you and your family and your employees?
great advice. Great advice, James. And
We work with a lot of folks that do this all day, every day. So even if it's not within our realm, M&A attorneys, CPAs, estate planners, et cetera, we're happy to make those connections. We don't replace anyone on the team. We just complement or bring other folks to complement their existing team.
fantastic. So if our audience wants to get in touch with James, find out a little bit about what you do, if it's a good fit, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, great question. So our company line 704-336-9005, phone or text, comes directly to me or our virtual assistant there. And then our website is certifiedexitplanners.com with an S. Feel free to go to our website. Email is james@certifiedexitplanners.com. Feel free to contact us anytime.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for watching and listening. James, once again, James Gorzynski, certified exit planners. Sorry about that little slip. Ben Ray O'Connell for the Sterling Insight podcast. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Sterling Insights. Stand out and supercharge your assets, where we provide the info you need from successful leading financial advisors, lawyers, and CPAs. Your hosts, Roger and Catherine Silk, invite you to learn more about Sterling Foundation Management by visiting sterlingfoundations.com.